I just watched Spider-Man No Way Home for a second time. I'm ready to talk all the spoilers with you guys. So anyway, let's go. What's up, guys? It's all the spoilers time. I like doing these because it's a little bit more laid back than my normal reviews. Just kind of breaking the movie apart. And of course, we're gonna be talking all the spoilers. And a movie like this, I was tiptoeing like a king around that freaking review. Even when I was editing that review, I cut some things out because if there was any question that you guys would think it's a spoiler, then I left it out. I would highly urge you guys to give this movie a second watch. You're going to anyway, I'm sure. Couple reasons. First, because I guarantee you'll pick up stuff that you didn't the first time. And second, it will kind of temper your opinion on the movie. It could be better, could be worse. Because the first time we watch a movie like this that has this much hype, and I can compare this to my love for Halloween. Anytime I see a new Halloween movie, I can't really take my first opinion, my first watch, that serious. Yeah, I'm pretty much still gonna enjoy it after a few watches, but it usually settles down a little bit. You know, the hype is just completely crazy for me when I'm watching. And this movie was just kind of the same way, because I'm a big Spider-Man fan. He's my number 3 behind the Hulk and Superman. I love the character so much. And I'm glad I gave this a second watch. Is this a great movie? Absolutely, it's still great. Is it possible that we might be overhyping this movie a little bit? I think it is possible. Doesn't take away before you hit the dislike, even though you can't anywhere, or at least you won't see it. Yes, this movie's great. I would even say right now, this movie, top 3 Spider-Man movies of all the movies. Is this movie the greatest thing since sliced bread? No, I don't think so. I think when you push away the novelty, and we're talking spoilers, yeah, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire are in this movie. We'll get into that portion of the movie, which is like the last act of the movie. But I was just thinking today, you could still have that multiverse concept, but what if those 2 Spider-Mans that came through that portal were not Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire? What if it was from 2 other places? Would we be going this crazy? Probably not. Probably not. Should we be excited that those 2 actors are in this movie? Absolutely. Oh my God, when they came through that portal, when Ned opens up the portal and they come through, I was like, I couldn't even contain myself. It was exciting. It was very exciting. And just the idea of a multiverse. The Avengers cracked those ideas open with different franchises coming together, but this is another whole thing. This is 3 different versions of the character, of one character. And this would have never happened if they hadn't rebooted Spider-Man every 5-10 years. Normally, you don't reboot a franchise that fast. So that's, I guess, the good thing about that happening. Spider-Man is that popular of a character that if we have any kind of kink in the chain, we gotta completely fix that kink, get rid of it, do whatever, so that way we can keep pressing forward and letting the money machine happen. Because Spider-Man is money. He is probably the most popular superhero on the planet. Everybody loves the guy. Most of the time, and I know I've already talked too long about this, but most of the time, any other character, they're either dead in the water or you gotta wait a good 10 years before you even see them again. But like I said in the spoiler-free review, this is a good movie. The story itself, the core story, is very well told. Looking back at the previous 2 movies in the MCU, Homecoming and Far From Home, for the most part, I don't like those movies. Just because of the constant need to inject humor in every scene. That's the Marvel formula. And it works, and I think it's all an Excel spreadsheet. And they're going with the average, the median. If putting humor in every scene works for 75% of the audience, let's do it, It's kind of like Moneyball, making this a mathematical equation. I can tell you right now, I guarantee you there's a group of analysts sitting in a room, they're looking at, X Marvel movie, and they have just a laundry list of boxes that they have to check. You got to put this. Look at them as baseball players. Check out Moneyball, good movie. That's what they're doing. You can see it. And if you really look at every Marvel movie, there's a formula there. It's pretty much the same template for every movie. Yes, there are differences based on the characters themselves, but for the most part, every Marvel movie has a formula. This movie is no different. It's a little deeper. The stakes are higher. There's a novelty to it for sure. And of course, it works. So why would they change it? But, you know, like any third movie in a trilogy, you're gonna want to raise the stakes. And the big thing they did in this movie was putting Peter in this situation where everybody knows that he's Peter. Then he doesn't get into the college because he's looked at as public enemy number one. And so he's ruined everybody's life around him, everybody that's close to him. And so he goes to Doctor Strange to do this spell. And at first, you know, he wants to turn back time, but the time stone's not available. You know, it's gone. So he does this other spell that actually makes the world forget about Peter Parker. But of course, while he's doing the spell, Peter screws it up. You know, he starts saying, I want my friends to remember me. I want my Aunt May to remember me. And then it just screws everything up. And so basically what happens is everybody that knows Peter Parker, no matter what universe, they are in the picture. They come through. So that's how you end up getting Doc Ock and Green Goblin and eventually the Lizard, Electro, all these guys. Tom Holland is really great in this movie. I think he's easily the best part. I loved him so much in this, and I really loved Zendaya and Jacob Batalon, who played Ned. I like that they kind of stripped down the friendship thing and you had less characters and it's a less is more approach. The emotion was at an all-time high in this because of the stakes, because of his love for his friends, and eventually, you know, that scene where Aunt May dies. To me, that's like the pivotal moment in the movie. And it was a shocker. That was the biggest thing that surprised me because, let's face it, in the back of all our minds, we knew that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were going to be in this. Because, you know, in my mind, I was like, oh my God, they're hinting at it and hyping it up so much that can you imagine if the two of them would not have been in the movie, how disappointed people would have been? Even though the movie's good anyway, it definitely would have hurt the movie, I think. I would have put Vegas money on it that they were in this movie. But the biggest thing that surprised me was Aunt May dying. And I thought they handled it so well too. And the last thing she says to Peter is, with great power comes great responsibility. Beautiful, beautiful. And so from this moment, Peter wants to kill Goblin. He is so angry. That is one nice thing about bringing Tobey Maguire into this, and Andrew Garfield, is they kind of mentor him and, you know, say, hey, we've been in your shoes. We know what you're going through. Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, oh my God. I think he was better in this movie than he was in the first movie. Just because the stakes were higher, you had that great fight with him after the explosion. And, you know, he's beating the shit out of Peter, you know, slamming him through walls, through the floors. And it got me thinking, like, they could have just had Green Goblin be the villain of this movie, and it probably would have been even better, because it almost felt like the other villains, Doc Ock was good, but I think the other ones were kind of unnecessary. Like, especially Lizard and especially Sandman. It spreads your villains thin, you know, if you have too many of them in the movie. So anyway, yeah, let's talk about Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. Like I said, when they come through that portal, my theater erupted. Everybody went crazy. It was awesome. I gotta say, I enjoyed Andrew Garfield more than I did Tobey. Starting with Andrew, the second he walks in, I think he gets the bigger entrance. He's in his Spidey suit. When he takes off that mask, it was almost like pulling a cork out of champagne. Everybody just erupted. And then he gets this awesome, funny scene where she's like throwing the bread at him and he's trying to prove that he's Peter Parker. To me, I think Andrew Garfield really stole every scene that he was in. And even like the emotional moments, he gets them. You know, the scene where he's talking about Gwen and, you know, relating to Peter, and his performance was just beautiful. I felt like Andrew Garfield was trying to prove himself in this movie because of all the shit that he got with the two movies that he did do. And I thought he was wonderful. And I knew, I was like, I guarantee if they're both in this, I think Andrew Garfield's gonna steal the show. I just felt like he was. Not to take anything away from Tobey Maguire. And cards on the table, Tobey Maguire is my favorite Spider-Man if you combine everything that you like about Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Tobey is my favorite. Although Andrew is my favorite Spider-Man. He just has the look of Spider-Man, but his comedic timing is just on point. And like I said, I think he stole every scene in this movie. I think a lot of people came out of this movie thinking, I might be an Andrew Garfield fan. The scene where MJ falls from the scaffolding and Tom Holland's Spider-Man jumps down to try to save her. I knew that was going to be the moment for Andrew Garfield when he dives down and he saves her. So I guess I could file this under cons because as happy as I was to see Tobey Maguire and that moment where all three of them are having that banter that's just infectious and it's great, it's one of my favorite parts of the movie, I felt like I wanted more Tobey, and it felt like Tobey was a little, I don't know, tired, or just something felt off. And let me know if you disagree with me in the comments, but I felt like I wanted something more from Tobey Maguire. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I was cheering up and down to see the guy. But after giving it a second watch, I don't know, something did feel a little off with Tobey, but Andrew Garfield, I mean, amazing, on point. I love the scene where he goes, "You're amazing too." Closing out the spoiler review, I'll leave you with this. I watched Spider-Man 2 directly when I got home after watching this movie again. I wanted to get an accurate comparison. I wanted to watch both movies back to back and figure out which one I preferred. And I will tell you right now, I definitely still prefer Spider-Man 2. I think the pacing of that movie is so dead on. And one thing I noticed script-wise, that movie doesn't depend on comedy. The comedy just organically presents itself throughout. And it's usually story-based. But Sam Raimi, he didn't depend on inserting a joke, in every scene or every other scene to try to get a quick laugh. And I think that's the detriment of some of the Marvel movies. You gotta have that quick laugh. And they're great when you're watching the movie. Everybody's laughing their asses off. It's great. But as time goes by, it does kind of wane and the joke is gone. So what are you left with after the joke? Again, this is a great movie. Don't get me wrong, okay? But pacing-wise, I still prefer Spider-Man 2. And Tobey Maguire is phenomenal in that movie. Everything is firing on all cylinders with Spider-Man 2. There's no novelty to it whatsoever. It doesn't depend on anything else. It doesn't need Daredevil to pop in the movie to get, a quick applause. Again, loved that scene. It was awesome seeing Daredevil catch the brick. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. But it's cool when you don't have to stand on anything else. You don't have to stand on a novelty to end up with a great movie. Call it that ugly phrase, fan service, if you want, because fan service has kind of turned into a bad thing these days to some people. Kind of a sour taste in the mouth. And there's great fan service and there's bad fan service. This was great fan service. It was awesome seeing these three worlds collide and come together. And luckily, they made a great movie out of it. You can kind of compare this to what they did in Freddy vs. Jason. And that's silly that I'm comparing this to a horror property, but kind of the same deal here. Combining those two worlds could have been a horrible experience. But luckily, they kind of played it safe and they just made it really fun, which is pretty much what they did with this movie. They made it really fun. Yeah, the stakes were really high. Aunt May dying was kind of your emotional core of it. And at the end of the day, it works. It does work. I know it sounds like I'm fishing for the negative in this review. I'm not. I'm just observing. It's an observation. And I'm wondering how this movie will be taken, after the dust is settled, maybe a couple years down the line. How will people look back at this movie and, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield being in it? Yes, it's great that they're in the movie, but setting their own movies aside, if you just look at their performances, of course it's better in their own respective movies because they definitely take a back seat in this. This is not their movie, so they should take a back seat. But if anything, it does make me want, Amazing Spider-Man 3 and Spider-Man 4, which probably will never happen. As much as we want that, it'll probably never happen. But it is nice that it gave some love to those two guys, So at the end of the day, it's a great thing, what they did. I even posted on Twitter, you know, can we give some massive love finally to Andrew Garfield for what he did? You know, he was really good in his Spider-Man movies, but the movies and him do get shit on quite a bit. And I'm not a fan of Amazing Spider-Man, but I'm a big fan of Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I think that movie gets the bad end of the deal more times than it should. So anyway, guys, how many of you have I pissed off? It's my nature, I guess. But anyway, yeah, this movie's still a purchase worthy, high purchase worthy. It's really great. It's still top 3 of all the Spider-Man movies, okay? I think Spider-Man movies are highly controversial and highly debated anyway, and this is no different. So anyway, yeah, let me know your thoughts on Spider-Man No Way Home in the comments. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day on Fridays. We do Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.